Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Hi, welcome to Shaken. I'm Steve Sunshine. If life has you asking God questions like, where are you? Or why did you let this happen to me? You're in the right place. Shaken is full of honest conversations and stories for real hope, not pat answers. We look at suffering pretty unflinchingly, but we also point you to Jesus, the source of hope and comfort in any circumstance.
You know, I never imagined being widowed at 44 years old. But walking through what I've walked through, I don't fear the future the way that I did before, because He met me in that darkest time. And we're human and life is life. I know there will be other seasons. I feel like I'm somewhat in a season of it right now, but I don't fear those seasons because I know how close God's going to be to me in those seasons. And that's a gift too, of knowing, like kind of having this assurance that God is right by my side, that He does have good for me, even in the hard, and that I will see purpose from the pain that He's brought me through.
Imagine losing the person you're closest to in the whole world. That's what happened to AJ Strout when she lost her husband Steve to cancer. Where do you go from there? How do you continue to live your life? This is AJ's story about grief, faith, and light overcoming darkness.
I met and knew my husband, Steve, we were married for 18 and a half years. We have 3 kids. Satchel is our oldest and only boy, and then we have Cecily and Pippa, 2 girls. We both love sports, and we were both in the Christian music industry on the marketing promotion side of things. And one of the challenges that we faced as a married couple is our middle daughter, Cecily, was diagnosed with autism back in 2013. And that was a very challenging time as you kind of have hopes and dreams for your kids. And then when a special needs diagnosis happens, all of a sudden, like, those dreams kind of shift and change. Right. And it was a season in our marriage that brought us closer together, but was also very challenging in and of itself. And it changed our family. I think we were able to kind of live more in the present. That's what Cecily taught us. She was not worried about the past. She didn't think about the future. She was in the present, and that is a gift that she brings to our lives every single day. In 2021, my husband Steve was complaining of back pain, and then he just got very achy, and then he couldn't hold food down. And again, 2021, we just all assumed it was COVID and went to the doctor, and he, we just ended up going to the hospital because he wasn't even holding fluids down at that point. And they diagnosed Steve with kidney failure immediately based on his blood work, and then they did a CT scan of his abdomen and saw lesions on his hip bones and in his spine. And so he was diagnosed with multiple myeloma cancer, which is a blood cancer that attacks the bones. And that's what the lesions were that they saw. And we started a journey of dialysis and chemo simultaneously. So he would do dialysis 3 days a week, chemo 2 days a week. And he fought hard for 10 months, had a stem cell transplant, and his body, I think, just had enough. Yeah. And he passed away June 3rd of 2022.
That was, I can't imagine how hard that was. I know that it sent kind of shockwaves across everybody in Christian music and Christian radio, and we were heartbroken for you. You know, in a way, it's hard to know what to ask. So I'm going to back up for a second, and we'll get back to Steve. I did not know about Cecily. Sam Kelly, who does another podcast on Purposely. It's called The Unexpected Adventure for people with special needs kids. And when she found out that Zoe was going to be likely to have Down syndrome, she said this on the radio, and I thought it was really profound. She said, what I've realized is this is like getting on a plane to go to Italy, and halfway across the ocean, the pilot says, we're not going to Italy, we're going to the Netherlands. And you realize that you're missing Italy, but the Netherlands is going to be beautiful in a different way. And I thought that was a perspective shifter. Does that meet with what you experienced?
Yeah, actually, that's a really great metaphor story. Absolutely. And I think at the beginning, probably when the pilot comes on and says, hey, we're going to Netherlands, there's that initial disappointment and wait, what? I was expecting Italy. And it's probably not until you get to the Netherlands and you start looking around that you realize how beautiful it is. I mean, there was definitely that season of, I don't speak Dutch, I don't, or whatever.
Exactly.
But when you can get to the place where you realize the gift you've been given, the gift you've been entrusted with, I'm so thankful that for that moment. And it took years for me, honestly, to change my mindset and my shift, or to shift from focusing on the disappointment or how it's different or how it changed our lives, to realizing that only few people are entrusted with these special human beings. Because that's how I see Cecily, and that doesn't mean we don't have hard days. We have really hard days. But she gives her siblings perspective that is it truly is a gift. And we get to live with that gift every single day.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, but that's really, I hadn't ever heard that of, oh, you think you're going here, but you're going here, and this place is pretty amazing. Yeah. Where I sit today, I completely relate to that.
Yeah. My daughter, Camille, has decided that she's a special needs teacher. She ended up not majoring in that and sort of changed gears after she got out of college. And she's working mostly with autistic kids. And she loves it.
Yeah.
Absolutely loves it.
They're incredible human beings. And yeah, it's, she has such an innocence about her. And, life and the mysteries of our faith and of healing and what that really looks like. It's interesting because are there things that I would love for Cecily to be healed from? Yeah, I would love for her to be able to communicate more. She's limited. She's very limited verbally. I don't say she's nonverbal because she does communicate some, but her biggest frustration lies in not being able to communicate. However, so I would love for her to not have to have that frustration and be able to communicate more. But would I want her to be neurotypical like my other two kids? No, because she has this innocence. She has this point of view that I really think is how humans might have been had there not been the fall of sin. Yeah. She doesn't hold a list of wrongs against people. She sees the beauty in the tiniest little things. The wonder and the joy that I see through her is just, it's just a gift. I mean, that's the best way I can say. She's just a gift. And I wouldn't want her to see the world like most typical, quote unquote, typical human beings do, because the way she views the world is, I think, probably what God intended for us.
We're so much more cynical.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's not getting better.
No.
And the way that AJ and I know each other is that they're people, we call them record promoters, who help let Christian radio stations know about all the great songs that are coming out. And they call and we have conversations about what songs are going on the radio. And you and Steve were both doing this. Some of the time you worked for the same company. Some of the times you worked for different companies. What was that dynamic like?
Yeah, it's two completely different. We would be competitors when we were at different record companies, and we would have songs basically go head to head. And yeah, it's funny. I can think back to where I was working an Everyday Sunday single and Steve was working a Joy Williams single, and we were both fighting for like that number one, and Steve got it. And with Joy Williams, Everyday Sunday ended up being at number two, and we never got it. But he made sure to hang that specific plaque very visible in our home. And it's, we both laughed about it because it was just kind of ridiculous that we would get competitive with it. But then when we worked together, it was a lot of fun to be able to strategize together. He was truly one of the smartest people. I mean, he's, for me, the smartest person I've ever met. I loved his point of view. Just such an intellect, but a great wit. Could always find risk in things. And so he was very efficient in his work and just such a creative. And it came so natural for him. So getting to work alongside that was such a privilege for everybody, honestly. So many people, since he's passed away, have reached out and said, oh, Steve saw this in me, or Steve taught me this. And I mean, every time I'm not surprised, because he just was one of those very special people that just incredibly intelligent, incredibly creative, incredibly funny. Yeah, I loved working alongside him. That was much more fun than being competitive.
I could see that. I could see why that would be more fun. Was it hard not to take work home?
Yes, we definitely talked about work some at the kitchen table. But we had so much of our life, and what brought us together, we both had such a big love of sports. So we watched a lot of sports together. So there was enough other stuff that, I don't feel like we stayed in the weeds of work too often at home.
He was a big Boston sports fan.
Yes. Oh, yes. Red Sox, Patriots.
And you were too, or?
Well, no, I grew up in California. So I grew up a San Francisco Giants fan.
Okay.
And then my dad was from the state of Washington. So big Seattle Seahawks fan growing up.
So I almost hate to get to this part, but talk about when you first got the diagnosis. Did it right away? Was there enough information that it seemed like this is really a potentially devastating thing, or was there a period where you thought maybe this is no big deal?
Well, a little nugget that would add to this story is that my dad, who passed away when I was 28 years old, also, he passed away from multiple myeloma cancer, the same rare blood cancer. Genetically unrelated. My dad and my husband somehow both diagnosed with this same rare blood cancer. And my dad, when my dad was diagnosed in 2004, they gave him 3 to 5 years. Said that was average, and he didn't quite make it 3 years. I think he made it 2.5. He was 63 when he passed away, and Steve was 48 when he was diagnosed. And the doctors in 2021 didn't even give a timeline. They were like, oh, it's come so long and so far. And the fact that he's in his 40s, his bones are strong, he should live decades, is what they told us. And that gave me a lot of hope. However, there was always this cloud, kind of, just knowing the experience. It was like the body keeps score, right? Your body remembers new lesions and the blood work, and Steve was different in the fact, like my dad never had kidney failure, and Steve had kidney failure on top of the multiple myeloma. And so that it was really interesting, the fact that they gave him better prognosis because of his age. However, it felt heavier because of the kidney failure, and he was in dialysis 3 days a week, and my dad never had to deal with any of that. So it was when Steve got the diagnosis and we were both in the hospital in the emergency room. I mean, one of the most shocking moments of my life was when they said, we believe that you have multiple myeloma cancer, and my knees buckled, and I'm the one standing, and he's the patient in the bed, and I'm standing, and I just for Steve to grab me in that moment, because he knew what that meant for me as he walked, because Steve and I were already married when my dad was diagnosed, and we walked through his cancer journey and his death together. So that was quite a moment, that in that moment that Steve still cared for me, because he knew what that news. I think he cared more about how that news impacted me than it really impacted him.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting, and God is so kind in the fact that I think he just really prepares you for different seasons. Steve, so he got the diagnosis in July of 2021, and in January of 2021, he and his best friend decided that they were going to start reading different books of the Bible together. And that accountability with his best friend was so beautiful, in the fact that I saw such a change in Steve that year. And again, when we are in the Word consistently, it shows. You see the light, you see the peace, you see God's love working in you and through you. And I saw it that year. And I think that was truly God's kindness in preparing Steve's heart for what he was going to walk into. And so when he got the diagnosis, he really leaned into his faith at that moment. And I'll say, when we got Cecily's diagnosis, Steve was just in a different place, and I think he was angry at God at that moment. Yeah. And I was afraid that he might be angry at God with his own diagnosis, and it was completely different. But I think it was because he was so in the Word in that season that it really prepared his heart to just lean into what God had for him in the final months of his life.
That had to be encouraging for you.
Yes.
Because, the trials are when our faith is tested.
Yeah.
And when he was faced with that, his faith just got stronger. As we all know, sometimes people go the other way and they walk away, and that's got to lead to a real sense of darkness. So that's really encouraging to hear. And did that give you strength?
Absolutely, yes. And I think we then realized what we needed to do, where we needed to turn every day, is just turn to the truth, turn to the Word, turn to God's promises. And, as humans, it's hard to really understand humanness, right? Because there's still death, and there's still bad things that happen to good people, and all the things. And, I when he passed away 10 months later, I still thought that Steve had so much more to do, and I don't know. I up until 2 days before he passed away, I wasn't even thinking that was a possibility, that he would leave us so soon. But, I think what that year taught us is that ultimately like we already know where our healing truly is. Our healing, our journey is the hope of heaven, and Steve was healed. Maybe
Yes.
not in the terms that people who aren't in the faith would look at, but Steve had already received his healing the moment he chose Jesus in his life.
Yeah.
But it really allowed us, like, holding on to certain promises and being in the word in that season gave us the strength every day. It gave us the peace that surpasses all understanding, that in different seasons of my life I didn't understand, but I understood it then, and I definitely understood it even after he passed away. But yeah, being in the word day in and day out, I mean, made all the difference.
How has this affected your faith?
I've told a few people this, and it's the truest thing. Outside of losing my best friend, I wouldn't trade anything about the last almost 3 years, because the Lord has met me in all the ways that the Bible talks about. He has been my provider. He has been my comforter. He has been, I know that He sees me. He has been my shepherd. He guides me. He has been a father to the fatherless. I've seen that in my kids. And the way that I have learned to finally trust Him, I would have said before that I trusted God, but more in the sense of, like, we're in the same car, but God's in the passenger seat and I'm still driving.
Right.
It wasn't until 2024 that I finally surrendered that to Him. And it was really just, after Steve passed away, like, I was always a great sleeper. Like, I had no problem sleeping. But after he passed away, I just, I'm sure it's just the stress of my new circumstances and the future that I thought and dreamed of was taken away, and those things would wake me up at night. And then I realized that God was waking me up every day somewhere between 4:45 and 5. And the first several months, probably the first 6 months, I would just try and fall back asleep. And I think I was realizing that He was waking me up to meet with me. And so the beginning of 2023, I was just like, okay, I guess I'm getting up and I'm going downstairs, and I would have my quiet time first thing in the morning. And before that time, honestly, I would have quiet time, but I would kind of fit it in the afternoon, in these 20 minutes or over here. I was not making it a priority at a specific time every day. And once I did that, and who's up at 4:45? I mean, I guess there are some people, but I definitely wasn't up at 4:45.
All those morning DJs.
Exactly, just the morning show DJs. But what, like, I love now waking up when it's dark and watching every day when the light meets the dark, when the light overtakes the dark. If I miss that, I feel like my day is just not the same. But when I sit at my table and it's dark outside and I'm with my Bible and just praying and seeking the Lord, those first moments of the day, it has truly changed my life. And that closeness has allowed me to trust Him for the first time, has allowed me to surrender to Him, has allowed me to see Him. I think it's through seeking Him in the morning, all of a sudden I see Him all around me in the tiniest little details that I probably overlooked the majority of my life. That God is actually working in the tiniest details for me, for my kids, for my family. And all of a sudden it's like I could see it all around me. And that I wouldn't trade for anything, because those verses in the Bible, He's close to the brokenhearted. Like, I know that to be true. And, you know, I never imagined being widowed at 44 years old. But walking through what I've walked through, I don't fear the future the way that I did before, because he met me in that darkest time. And if and we're human, and life is life. I know there will be other seasons. I feel like I'm somewhat in a season of it right now, but I don't fear those seasons because I know how close God's going to be to me in those seasons. And that's a gift too, of knowing, like, kind of having this assurance that God is right by my side, that he does have good for me, even in the hard, and that I will see purpose from the pain that he's brought me through.
How would you help someone who's been through something very difficult like that, or going through it now, and they're not where you are? They don't feel like their faith is getting stronger. They're confused, angry, any number of things. What would you say?
Well, first of all, I would say God is bigger than any feeling, thought, or emotion you can have, and you can bring whatever those are. They're not going to scare him away. Like, just be honest with him. One of my pastors he gave this sermon on pray what you got. And if you're sad, if you're afraid, if you're depressed, if you're angry, pray what you got. God can handle it. He's bigger. He created us. He created those feelings. And so I think just being able to be honest with God and starting that communication with him, it's not going to scare him, because guess what? It means you're talking to him, and that's probably going to bring him joy. And secondly, I would say he does speak through his word. And if you haven't made it a regular habit to just read every day, and, you know, there is some discipline that goes along with it, and you might not get the answers that you want that day to that question or problem or trial, but he is faithful. Like, if he sees your faith, and if you're bringing it to him and you're seeking to spend time with him every day, he's going to be faithful to you. And so, I mean, those are really the first two things, is just pray what you got. He's bigger. He's bigger than the highs and the lows. And just, if you can, 5 minutes a day, read a chapter, a verse, just make that a priority. I would say that.
I think, and it is because I feel so strongly about this, it's kind of a recurring theme on this show, that in a lot of ways we've given people unrealistic expectations of what's going to happen in this life. Mm-hmm. The idea that if you have enough faith, the person will be healed, or the marriage will be saved, or whatever it is. I've learned through my Parkinson's journey that, he might heal me, but if he does, it's going to be certainly him, because there's no cure. But his presence is the gift in a lot of cases. Paul said, take the thorn from me. He asked 3 times, and God said, my grace is sufficient for you. My strength is made perfect in weakness. You go to Revelation where it says that he's going to wipe every tear from every eye. The promise is still kept by God. Mm-hmm. It's just not necessarily, and he never said that it would definitely happen in this life.
Yeah.
And I think that's where his grace is sufficient.
Yes.
But the promise is not broken. It's deferred. And it's still good. I mean, you're going to see Steve again. Mm-hmm. He's going to be better than ever. And, my problem's going to go away by that time. And any other thing that anybody is struggling with. Mm-hmm. but we're never promised that it's going to definitely happen. Sometimes it does, but that it's going to happen in this life. And I think that's where a lot of people get disappointed and really get their faith really shaken because they have an expectation. Somebody told them that there's going to be this breakthrough or whatever. And they've been promised by a pastor or a speaker or whoever that the problem is going to get taken away in this life or soon or tomorrow or whatever.
I think too many of us do get caught in what happens on earth. And, we have eternity to look forward to. And this is just a blip on the radar of eternity with him. And that is the gift. And I think in this world, the gift, like you said, it's really his presence. His presence is what brings peace. It's his presence that allows us to extend grace to others because we've been extended that grace. Hopefully, as believers, people who don't know Jesus see something different in us because we have hope for a future. And yeah, healing is so interesting because I think a lot of us, because we are human, we only think about this earth and our time here. But we have so much more to look forward to. Absolutely. I'm so grateful that Steve is already experiencing the wonder of heaven and, that he's there with my dad. And, I'm sure Steve is probably finding sports legends and heroes and musical, who are up there and the biblical heroes too. And just, getting to hear their stories, their stories of how they met Jesus. And, I think like for my kids, as I get to talk to them, they have the hope of seeing dad again in the future when we all get to heaven. And, they have, obviously, they're going to have a different life growing up without a dad, but that's where we have a heavenly Father who can step in, who is already that role. He is the perfect Father, and that is the gift of who God is. Like, he meets us all in our stories. He meets us all and fills the need of what we have as humans. And for me, I think the best way I can point people to Jesus and point people to that hope is the word of our testimony, right? We all, as humans, are going to have our thing. I am a special needs mama. I am a widow. I have lived through losing my spouse, and that is my story. We all have that story. And if we can, Jesus meets us in those moments. I think about the first year after Steve passed, and I would go sit in my pantry. Like, I would sit on the floor in my pantry and just cry because I didn't want my kids to necessarily see me cry, and I just needed a moment to myself. And I think about the fact that Jesus was sitting right next to me in that moment, and that he already knew that feeling because he, kneeled down in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he cried out to God, like, God, if you can take this from me. He understands suffering. He's with us in that suffering. He meets us in that suffering. And what I love about the Garden of Gethsemane is that Gethsemane actually means oil press. And we all are going to be pressed in this world because we're human, and sin has, it's just it's going to be present in all of our lives. We are imperfect humans. And so we are going to know suffering. It's all going to look radically different in our stories. However, Jesus meets us in that place of suffering. And so I think about when I'm having those moments, I think about being in the garden with him because he already knows what that's like. And we are all going to be pressed. We are all going to suffer. But that pressing produces this oil. And if you look in the Bible, oil was used to anoint people, oil was used to heal people. And so through our suffering and through our pressing, it's going to produce this beautiful oil that is going to heal others. And that's what I ask the Lord all the time. I'm like, okay, if my testimony, if my story, if my pressing can be a little slice or a little drop of oil that is going to help someone in their story, that they'll feel less alone in being a special needs parent, that they'll feel less alone in being a sister in widowhood or whatever. God always promises that there's going to be purpose from our pain. And so that's my hope. And that's what I've asked him. I'm like, Lord, please use my testimony for your good. Like, let this suffering, let this heartache that I've lived through be something that brings hope to someone else.
Wow. I love that. And your faith is, you should know your faith is very inspiring. The fact that you're saying, God, use me now, even though I've been through this. I wouldn't have wanted any of this to happen, but use me. That's a step beyond saying he's still good, which is something that is a struggle when things go that badly. Anyway, I think you're an inspiration.
Well, thank you. I have to believe his promise that there will be purpose in the pain. And so that's my hope. I'm like, all right, let's how can we partner to bring purpose to what I've been through? And again, like, we're all going to experience that. And we have a choice. We have a choice to wallow. We have a choice to be angry. And rightfully so. I have been angry and I have wallowed. Right. But we also have a choice to use it for good and God's glory.
AJ, is there a way people can follow you, or are you doing anything like that?
I mean, I'm on Instagram. I don't have anything official, but AJ Strout 22 is my Instagram handle,
okay.
And
all right.
That would
so
be the
and
place.
You're not well. You I don't know. You might want to consider writing a book, because I think it would be very good.
I am in the process, and I'm a very goal-oriented person. I had set the time aside this past fall. I really thought that I would get a lot of this down on paper, and it's still my hope that I will write a book someday. But Holy Spirit told me not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
And so I am sitting in this place where my word this year in 2025 is wonder. And so every morning in my quiet time, my posture is, all right, Lord, how am I going to experience you in the world today? And it's been such a beautiful shift. And maybe I've needed this season where my eyes are opened a little differently. Like this morning, we had rain all weekend. And this morning, we saw the sunshine, and my kids and I were like, oh, thank goodness. And I tell you what, I was looking out every window for a rainbow, and because I thought he's going to show me some wonder in a rainbow. And I didn't see a rainbow, but what I saw were these beautiful white clouds. And had my word not been wonder this year, I would have never even looked outside. But for whatever reason, he is showing up in nature, in his creation, through people. And so for whatever reason this season, I'm just seeing him show up in day-to-day life. And maybe this is a part of whatever he has for me in the future. But right now he has me in this kind of season of waiting.
Yeah. want to wrap up with a random compliment, way off topic,
Okay.
and a random question. The random compliment is, you and Steve are the gold medal winners of picking names for kids. I mean, Satchel, Pippa, and Cecily, nobody's done better than that. Those are amazing names.
You.
The random question is, who in Christian music are you excited about right now?
Oh, man. Well, Forrest Frank's new record just came out on Friday, and I am so honored to get to be a part of his radio team, and his last record was just one of my favorites. So I'd have to say today it's Forrest Frank. I am a massive Christian music fan, so I could easily tell you 30 people right now that I absolutely love, follow. Like, I love discovering the new music, Seth Schleter, Samantha Ebert, Jamie McDonald, like those new artists I think are just, Edward Rivera is a new artist that I'm super pumped about. But then Toby Mac, I mean, my goodness, every record Toby does. I love Josh Baldwin, David Leonard, Andrew Ripp. I mean, I'm a massive fan of music because it has met me. Those 3 minutes or 4 minute gifts, God has spoken to me through music more than probably any other mean. I mean, outside of his word, but that music has been balm to my soul. It has given me hope. It has brought me joy when I needed joy. So yeah, we're big Christian music listeners in our house, and there's always music playing because I need it. I need it to get through my day. And who wouldn't want these melodies and lyrics that just point us to him?
That's wonderful. AJ, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to Shaken. If you know someone who's asking questions like, why did God allow this to happen? Is God angry at me? What do I make of my suffering? Would you please share Shaken with them? You can help more people find Shaken by liking and subscribing and reviewing this podcast. You can find more episodes at purposely.com or wherever you get podcasts.
Thanks for listening. We just wanted to take a minute to let you know that just like you and your family, Purposely is also part of a family, the Krista family of ministries. Krista helps kids and teens learn and grow in their faith at King Schools and Miracle Ranch Camp. And Krista shares Jesus with people in the poorest, most remote places through World Concern. Krista Senior Living is a community of love and care, and Krista Media is a place of hope on the radio. God is changing lives through these 5 ministries, and Krista is on mission to share the good news of Jesus. To learn more, visit Krista.org.